Thor Odin Stenhaug.
Hello.
Welcome to the studio, bro.
Thanks, man. It's really nice. I really like it.
Yeah, you know what? I saw you perform comedy for the first time. We just met last night.
Yeah.
And I had no idea who you were.
Yeah.
Because you're based in London.
I am, yeah.
And then I was sitting in the back of the club and I was going, oh, this motherfucker's good. And I thought maybe it was like your first night or something like that.
Yeah.
But you were great. How long have you been doing comedy for?
I started at the start of 2019. So I started just before the pandemic.
Good.
So I was going for like a year, like as much as I could. Like as soon as I started, I just went full in on it. And then obviously a pandemic happened. And then I actually moved. I sort of moved back. I was still paying rent in London, but I was like living at home
In Norway.
Yeah. Outside of Bergen, like this tiny place outside of Bergen.
Yeah.
And that's when I started doing a little bit of stand-up in Norwegian, but there wasn't that much going on.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the UK after that again.
Okay, so you went back to the UK in like
Yeah.
2021 or something?
Yeah, back to the UK. Well, first I went back in the summer of 2020. Every time you open up, I tried to go back.
Yeah.
And then it would just shut down. And when it shut down in the UK, it was so much more extensive than it was over here.
Yeah.
Like, it was like you were allowed to go for a walk for an hour. And that was what you could do. So then I would come back to Norway and I'd try and like work a bit, try and save up money, doing other things, basically.
Yeah, because it was pretty draconian. Like, I looked at the news from around the world,
Yeah.
and a few places that looked like shit was real was in Australia, actually, where I'm from.
Yeah.
They're pretty locked down in London and these big cities, these big metropolises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when
man.
Australia, like, it was because I have some friends who had family in Australia and they were like, they couldn't even go and see their family. They couldn't like travel back.
No. They locked it down state by state.
Yeah.
And you could not leave more than a 3-kilometer radius.
Oh,
from
wow.
Dude, they were checking like my mum's driver's license.
Oh, man.
To
That's
make
mad.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad we're done with that.
Yeah. Glad
Yeah.
we're done with that.
Okay, so we got through the pandemic. You moved back to London.
Moved
and
back
then
properly summer 2021. I was back on it. And the weird thing was that when lockdown happened, I'd only done stand-up comedy for like a year.
Yeah.
So I was so like fresh into like my sort of stand-up career. So it was like a weird thing when people be like, what are you doing in London? And it felt a bit premature to be like, I'm a comedian. But then also that was all that I did. I had like all of these weird day jobs so I could like do comedy as much as possible. And then I think, to be fair, it wasn't long after I went back until I was able to do full-time in London.
So you're a full-time comedian?
Yeah. I've been full-time for like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you make your money enough to live by performing like in clubs or private gigs or a combination? Like how do you make that work?
I mean, it's a bit of a combination. It's mainly clubs. I'm definitely like, I love club comedy. That's like I love stand-up comedy in clubs. I love all of that shit.
Nice.
It's a combination of mainly doing clubs. I run my own gig, which is like 2 times a week in Soho in London. So I'm not always there, but I run it, so that helps a bit. And that is like where all of the boring admin shit comes in as well.
Yeah.
And then I host quite a lot. I compare a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm trying to do less out of that because there was a time I was doing it too much. But I definitely will compare at least twice, probably 3 times a week still.
Wow. How many spots are you doing a week?
It depends, but somewhere between 6 and 12 a week, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah,
6 and 12. I guess you get a lot of volume in London.
yeah, it's not that hard. And also like on a Friday or a Saturday, I will normally do 2 or 3. So already then you're on 5.
Yeah.
So I normally have like 1 or 2 days a week that I take off because I have a girlfriend and she makes me take some days off, which is fine. I also do think it is important to take some days off because you got to have like a little bit of a breather. But I love doing it. So there's nothing that I would rather do. But I normally have like, now I've started taking like Sundays off.
Okay.
But I'll gig apart from that. Yeah. So loads. But also like the same in terms of like emceeing. That's we don't really say like comparing. We would say emceeing. Which makes it sound so much more hip hop, I think.
It does. It's
Which
like
I'm
you're rapping,
I'm an
bro.
MC. I'm just emceeing, doing the gigs, emceeing. Like so sometimes you can MC like 2 or 3 a night.
2 or 3 a night.
But that's
a
a lot.
long because you're there for 2 hours for the whole show.
It's so long, man.
Yeah.
And I would much rather do 3 spots than MC 3. I try and like not MC as much. I try and maybe MC 30% of the time, and then do spots for 70%.
Yeah, I fell into that trap of just emceeing for a while because I kind of got addicted to crowd work, and I got addicted to like creating comedy in the moment. I go, oh, you know what's so nice? You just talk to people and the pressure wasn't there. And then I realized, oh, that's kind of a trap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's much harder to. I don't really know what the sort of like rules are for it in Norway because I haven't like done enough stand up over here. But in the UK, it's a bit like you can like work on some material while you're emceeing, but you're sort of like you're sort of running the show. So if it is a tough night, it's not really your time to go up there and be like, here are some weird stuff that's probably not going to work. You sort of do have to like make sure that people have a good night. And that is like on the new material nights. If it's like a pro gig, you can't do any new stuff. You can do new stuff that you're working on. And I also always think you have to be a bit cheeky and just like do a bit more than you probably should. But you know, like the night depends on you, and the club is like paying you to make sure that like everybody's having a good time.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean with the crowd work thing, because I love doing crowd work. I think it's so much fun doing crowd work. I love just like talking to people, and so many people have like weird stories, and when they come alive in a comedy club, it's like awesome. But it definitely makes, if you do that loads of times, I just feel like, as in like if you just emceeing, I do feel like definitely my stage persona is getting better, but my material isn't necessarily getting better.
It's not getting sharper.
No, it's not.
No, that's what I experienced. I experienced that I was like, but that was an okay period because I wanted to work on the stage persona, and I wanted to work on that, just being able to be in the moment, have fun, make things happen, see if I could connect dots in the room.
Yeah.
And I definitely think I got that skill, and it served me well, like whilst I'm performing my bits. Yeah. But then I realized like, oh, I'm getting lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? Like I really love creating jokes and a structured set that has a kind of beginning and an end, like a journey. Yeah. And I'm not able to do that. And that's why I kind of like, I don't host as much as I used to, because I really love doing my bits more than I love hosting.
Yeah, same. I just think for me, it's like a, you know, when you create a bit and the bit works, you're just like, I just have that now. Like I've just created this thing that will just like, I can just whip this out whenever. I love that feeling. And obviously with crowd work, it is nice. And there are some things with crowd work that like, you're like, oh, actually that was really funny. And I can probably like do that again. If it's like a tough night and I need to just get a quick laugh, I can probably like say that line about like 2 people are dating in this scenario, whatever. But I don't really get the same like sense of pride that I get when I create like a bit that really works. Yeah, that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, you like bring something to life. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's really cool. And so, like, how much are spots paying in London clubs? Like if you're doing 5 or 6 a night, is it like good money, or is it, you know, it varies? Or
it's so dependent. It's so dependent on the club. It's so dependent on how long you're doing. Yeah, it's really dependent. I think when you start out, they're not really paying anything. So many clubs in London will, for like a while, try and just keep you on like that. We call it like an open spot. Yeah. So you're just like, you're doing 10 minutes to a sold out crowd, and you're getting 0 money for it. And you're just like adding up like how much everyone's paid, and you're like, this is not making any sense. And they will try and keep you on that if you don't push it, they will just keep you on that, but you have to push. And then, yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, it really depends. Like, I've been very fortunate that there's a comedy club in London called Angel Comedy. They have a venue called the Bill Murray. They're really lovely people. And they have like really like taken me in, and it's sort of like my home club, which is not really a thing that you have in London, like a home club, but as much as you can have one, I do have one, which is really lucky for me. So on the weekend there, I can, it really does depend, but like if I'm emceeing 2 gigs for them and then closing the 11 show, for instance, so let's say I MC 7:30, 9:30 at one venue they have, which is called Camden Head. It's a different venue. Which I also have to like make sure that everything goes okay. There's a lot of admin stuff there. And then I close a later show. It is a lot of money. It's probably like I say a lot of money. It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money compared to getting no money. It's probably like, maybe you can make like about like £300, which I don't know how much that is 4,000 something.
It's not bad for a weekend.
Yeah. So if you do that like on a Friday and a Saturday, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But obviously that is like so lucky. But you can also, like, I did 15 minutes at another really good comedy club there called Backyard, and that was like £75.
Yeah.
So, which is like, it's still money that counts, but you know, you're not gonna get rich from doing that.
No, it looks like it's kind of similar to Norway. Like you got to you need a high volume.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna make like 1,000 kroner for a show, or £100, you got to do a bunch of them a month.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of comedians, I mean, it depends. Like, if you do like the Comedy Store, if you do like a weekend at the Comedy Store, they will pay you like £1,000. So even if you just do like 2 or 3 of those a year, that will make like a massive difference.
Yeah.
But I think in London, that's why people double up. That's one of the reasons why people double up, for like money reasons. I mainly do because I just think it's so much fun. It's definitely my favorite thing to do. But also a lot of people are like road comedians. So they will go to like the smaller places. It's the same people do it in Norway as well. Like they'll go to like either different cities, or they'll go to these places where like there's nothing else to do. So everybody comes out and watch comedy. And those gigs aren't necessarily as fun, but they can pay a lot better than London spots, because there are so many comedians in London that the clubs can sort of just be like, some clubs are great, like some clubs are amazing, but they can sort of like just keep you. They're like, if you don't want to do this unpaid 10 spot, I have 400 other people who want to do it. Yeah,
definitely. I noticed that as well when we were on tour last year, when we went to these small towns, and there's just nothing happening on a Tuesday night there in a Norwegian summer, and so many people would turn out.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, it'd be packed. We'd have to like move tables out and get extra chairs, and I got it. I was like, okay, cool. We went to this smaller town, and it was packed, and then we would go to somewhere like Bergen. I was like, okay, there's so much competition. There's so many other options that people have for entertainment.
Would you, when you would go to like the smaller places and stuff, how would people react to stand-up? Had people been to stand-up comedy before?
No, not all of them. No. Some of them had, but some of them it was crazy that it was like their first time.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And especially some of the people that were like pretty young, like 20, 21, 22, and maybe they haven't even left that small town, and they're like, oh shit, this is a whole thing, you know? Maybe they've seen some shit on Netflix and YouTube, but they hadn't really, a lot of them hadn't experienced it, and they thought it was wild.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. It's like, you're popping somebody's comedy cherry. You're like, oh shit, we're the first comedians you've ever seen live. And that's kind of a cool feeling.
I feel like it can go like both ways. They can be like, at least when I've done the shows, like I feel like it can go both ways. It can be like an audience that just like, they're just chatting to each other, and they're just like, they don't understand that like that's being disruptive, or they're not trying to be rude. They're just like on the phones, whatever, as if they're watching, movie at home, or as if they're watching comedy at home, I suppose. Or you can have those people who are just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
They just never heard like a joke like that before. Like that was so funny. And like, if you do like a little like crowd interaction thing, they just love it so much.
Yeah.
But I completely get what you mean by that. Like, I feel like it is like a really nice feeling when you go to like a small community and they are just so up for it. They're just so happy that you're there.
Yeah, they love it, because like life there can get pretty repetitive day after day after day, and then all of a sudden you get like these fucking savages, just coming in like slinging jokes, and especially if you get a sense that like, all right, we're gonna take this in this direction.
Yeah,
we want more. And when we went on tour, we were like such a diverse group of comedians.
Yeah.
So there was kind of something for everybody in a way. So that was kind of dope as well.
Did you start doing comedy here or in Australia?
I started doing it here. Yeah, 2018, end of 2018 is when I started.
Around same time as me though.
Yeah, pretty much.
Have you ever done it in Australia?
No, because I went back and it was during the bushfires.
Oh, wow.
And I was, you know what I mean? It was kind of like some apocalyptic hellscape. And then I went to New Zealand for most of that trip. And then it was the pandemic. And then I went back again, and I was going to do a spot, but it didn't work out.
Would you be nervous to do comedy in Australia?
I think for the first time,
yeah.
I think so. Man, like Australian audiences are pretty savage.
Are they?
Oh, fuck yeah, bro.
Loads of my friends are in Australia now.
Yeah, okay.
They're at, I think it's Melbourne that's on now. The Melbourne
Comedy Festival.
Yeah. Loads of my friends are there.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, do you know how that works? Is it like the Fringe? Can you just kind of go down and put up shows, or is it like a...
Yeah, it's both. Like you can either go down and do like a Fringe, you just like put on your own show, that sort of thing, or The other way is that you have an agent who will like hook up with this production company and will like fly you over, and you do like the galas and stuff. So you can do both. It's very similar to the Edinburgh Fringe. I've never done it. I'd love to do it.
I'd love to do it too.
Yeah, it's just such a cool thing. You can go like, I mean, we were talking about this in the car yesterday, you know, like all of the cool places you get to experience, and you can like blame it on comedy, you know?
Yeah. So there's two things I love doing when I visit somewhere. I love doing jiu-jitsu because it's a very nice culture. And I love doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Because again, like it's just fun. And, you know, you get to meet like cool people that are really passionate about something that you love. So
when you were saying that you would be like nervous about doing like comedy in Australia, is it because obviously you've never done it before? Is it because you're Australian but everyone else is Australian as well? Because obviously I guess in Oslo you are like the Australian guy, right?
Yeah, and it's also my cousin's a stand-up comic. And he's just told me stories of like, you know, audiences where he's gone up on stage and, you know, people just start to say, "You fucking suck." You know, Australians are rowdy, bro. You know what I mean? Like they get pretty lit and they just kind of like shout a lot of stuff out. And he's just told me a bunch of stories where he's just like ate shit on stage, and he's going, "I know you guys hate me, but I have to do the full 15, otherwise I don't get paid." Yeah, and so he's just been there, like, you know.
Fuck.
Yeah, but I think that's probably just earlier on in his career at like these dive places. Where, you know what I mean? Like they just try to get something going, and nobody gives a fuck about the comedy.
I get that. I definitely think British people are way too polite to do that. Like people wouldn't necessarily shout out like, "Yeah, you suck." I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. I have seen people be rude in different ways. You know, people just not giving a shit, and I've definitely heard like, "When is the comedy gonna start?" Yeah. That's like a savage one that comes up. But yeah, I get that. I can understand why that would be scary. But I also do think if you did do it, I think after 2 gigs, you would feel completely fine about it.
I think so too. And I really want, I was talking to my mum about this. I was like, she talked about the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And I go, yeah, I'd love to do that. She goes, yeah, you should do it. Yeah. And I just fly down and hang out for a couple of weeks.
You can just put it on. There's like, they have like a free fringe version there as well, where you can like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that expensive. I guess it's always going to be expensive because you're going to Australia, but like, it can be less expensive than it has to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Dude, when are you thinking of going?
I don't know. Like I've done Edinburgh every year since I started.
Yeah.
So I did Edinburgh like 7 months into my comedy career. I did a split hour, like a split bill, we would call it, where I was meant to do 20 minutes, and I had like 7 minutes of material.
Oh my God.
So it was like 7 minutes of jokes, and then it was crowd work. And I remember so much of my crowd work was based around Norway, to the point that it just became like this like visit Norway sort of thing. Like, "What, have you been to Bergen? That's amazing." And then I remember I actually did it with Pernilla Holland.
Oh, really?
So she had been doing comedy longer, but she had done more like, I think she's done more like clowning things. She's done a lot of improv. She was in this really successful improv group, did like musical improv. And I started doing stand-up comedy in the UK. I actually met her just before I started doing stand-up comedy. I went to the Edinburgh Fringe just to watch. And my friend who's an actor was like, "Oh, this Norwegian girl is doing a show. Let's go and watch it." That was Pernilla. She did a show. It was great. So much fun. And we hung out afterwards. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I really want to start doing comedy." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever." And then I did start doing comedy. And I remember like a few months in, we were on the same lineup. And I was like, "I don't know if you remember me." And she was like, "Oh, of course I remember you. How's it going?" Whatever. And then I just said, I was just like, "I love to do the Fringe. Like, I know I'm very new, but I just love to do it." And she was like, "Well, I'm working on like my show. So why don't you do like 20 minutes and I'll do 40.
Oh,
and then
perfect.
we did that, yeah.
Yeah, what year was that?
That was 2019. Yeah, that was that summer of 2019. Yeah.
Damn.
It was so much fun though. It was like going, because everybody in the UK will go up there. More or less, not everybody, but a lot of people will go up. So it feels a bit like you're at like summer camp. Yeah. Because all your mates are there, but you get to do comedy and you get to drink. Nice. And it's like, it's so much fun. But Pernilla was like, she was like, I had like no friends before I met Pernilla in London. It was so hard to make friends because I don't really know what it is in Norway, but the Norwegian comedy scene seems really nice and very supportive. Like from my, just what I've experienced so far.
I think it's very nice, man. Yeah.
But in you know, I'm not saying that the UK comedy scene isn't like that, but there's so many people. So when you start out doing comedy, no one's like, "Hey, there's a new dude on the block." Like no one's like that. It's like, yeah, it's you and 400 people, and about 370 of those people will not do comedy at the end of the year.
I got it.
So no one really wants to invest in you.
Yeah, you have to prove yourself through time.
Yeah, and also you suck. Like no one's good.
Yeah.
And you're doing all of this shitty gigs. So that was like, it was definitely like a little bit tough. Like at the start, like you just don't really know anyone. But I think I was like, I knew it was going to be like that. And then I, made some sort of small friendships here and there. And then when I met Pernilla, she was like, oh, this guy's good. And I got loads of friends.
Wow. So she kind of like, vouched for you and
Oh,
introduced
absolutely.
you. And wow, that's nice. Dude, you made me think of something because I checked out your Instagram account. Because one of the things that I'm thinking, when it comes to success in comedy is that just being a good stand-up comedian isn't really enough. You know what I mean? You've got a lot of other good stand-up comedians. And I looked at your Instagram account and you said, I think it says new video every week.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this guy's really good at posting videos. How much of like social media and posting things like that do you think contributes towards being a successful comedian?
I think now it's just changed everything. Like, I just think like within the last 2 years, everything's changed from like, you want to be on TV to you want to have loads of followers. Because like loads of followers can sell out shows. You can go on tour. Like even in Norway, like if people in like Ålesund or like Trondheim are watching your videos and you go there, they will come and see your show. Like at least they could do. They know who you are. Yeah, I think it's like changed everything. And also, what I was saying about like emceeing earlier, it's changed my perspective on that. Because when you MC, when you compare, like now, it's like an opportunity to get a new clip. So every time I MC, I film it every single time because something might happen, something funny might happen, and you could post it, etc. And I also do think it's like I say at the end of every set in the UK, I plug my Instagram. And if I headline, and if I can, it doesn't, to be fair, I don't even have to headline. If there's a chance for it, I have like a QR code. So I will go, hi guys, I'm doing a longer show in London soon. I've got, I also post clips every single week on my Instagram. If you guys want to follow, I'll be standing outside. I've got a QR code. You can come and scan it. And then people go and scan it.
That's so clever. So you stand outside of the club or like at the
outside of the room,
outside of the room with a QR code like on a laminated piece of paper? Or
yeah, it's not laminated, but yeah, basically, yeah.
I gave you the lamination cred.
But the problem with laminated is that you don't want the light to. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. The reflection might get in the way of the QR reading.
Yeah, but
I like that you thought about that.
I mean, it's just like I don't think I invented it, but I did do it. Not that many people do that, and it is a bit like it does really work. It works so much better than just plugging it.
Yeah,
But I mean, first of all, I wouldn't do it if it didn't go well. Like if I had a terrible gig, I'm not going to be there. Guys, if you want to see more of this, if you guys want to see more of silence, come on over to my Instagram, Yeah. But I do it, yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, it's a bit of like an awkward, vulnerable thing to be standing there just like being like, do you like me? But if you do well, people come over and they do scan it. And also those audiences are more valuable than just Instagram audiences, because those audiences are people that will go to comedy gigs. They're already there. They've gone to comedy gigs.
Yes.
Way more likely to go to another show that you do in the future.
Yeah, that's really good insight because
Yeah.
they're already comedy fans.
Yeah.
And now they just understand how to find you.
Now they're a fan of you, basically.
Yeah.
So that is like, that's a massive thing. And I do think it has changed everything. So, but my point with this is that when I'm saying that, I also need to make sure that I'm giving them something for following me. So it can't just be like, do you want to follow me? And then I'm just showing them loads of pictures of like, here's my brother. Here's me watching TV. Like it has to be some sort of entertainment, Like no one's going to like, I know they're not paying for it, but no one's going to like subscribe to YouTube channels if you don't like the content, if there's no content,
Yeah.
So I think of it as a way to gaining followers, but I also think of it as a way of sort of entertaining the followers that I have. And crowd work is a good way to do that, because if I just film all of my bits and post them, then I'm going to run out of bits. And also, when they come and see my show, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I saw all of that on his Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true, man. I think that's really good insight because I do a lot of shows over here, and I think, like, there's 5 or 6 comedians in this lineup. If you're first or second, like, nobody's going to remember your fucking name.
No,
and that you might have crushed it. You might have killed it. But if they don't have a way to find you afterwards, like, that's just a lost connection.
But I do think that is true anywhere, to be fair. Like, that's why I mentioned the headline thing. If I'm closing a gig, it's so much easier to get loads of followers from that because they just remember you so well. They're like, oh, that's that guy from the end. He was so good or whatever, if it goes well. Or if it's just before a break, it's very good. If you do open, it's going to be so much harder. Let's be honest. Like, if you're opening, you very often like taking a bullet for everyone else. If the audience aren't warm,
you are taking that bullet.
And people don't know that. People that don't do stand-up comedy, they just think that first guy wasn't as good as the rest of them.
Yeah.
Which is the most annoying thing for me.
Especially because, like, whoever's organizing the night or the conf making the lineup is going to put somebody who's good opening so that they can get the show headed in the right direction.
Yeah, because the opening thing is where the audience goes, oh, this is what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
Okay, so that they do know what they're doing, especially if you're doing, like, I think it's different if you're doing like somewhere like Latter.
Yep.
Or like a big club, whether it's in Norway, the UK or wherever. If it's a big club, they are more likely to trust the night because it's a big club.
Yep.
But if you're doing this like weird sort of like basement or above a pub, and even though they're it's a great lineup on, unless the first comedian sort of sets the tone, what this is going to be like, and the MC as well, I would say, do set the tone.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it was really it's really good talking about like the social media game because I feel like a lot of comedians in Norway, especially a lot of my colleagues, we're not really taking advantage of utilizing the social media platform for all that it's worth because it is I think a really good way to connect with people that like you, with people that are fans. But do you just do one video a week? Or what's your are you releasing like once a week on the same time for kind of consistency like that? Or
Yeah, that's the aim. The aim is to release every Tuesday.
Gotcha.
Every Tuesday. But now, because I've been flying back and forth to Norway so much, I haven't been able to do it the last 2 weeks. But that is normally Tuesday, same time, every week. So yeah, that's what I try to do. I understand what you mean. I think there are like 2 different things. You can do the stand-up sets and bits and all of that. And also loads of comedians are doing sketches. That's the thing. It's a lot of like, it depends. Like, people have different styles. Some people have the more like mainstream style, which will be like, in the UK it will be like British people in the summer. And then like what British people do in the summer, like classic, like, oh, it's so warm and it's so warm. And like, just like stuff like that. And then some people are more like niche. But you can be niche on social media because... if you're a bit weird and alternative, there are, social media is everybody. There are loads of people that are going to like that.
Dude, I have a comedian friend in Iceland, and he just does like dad jokes about Iceland. And he has so many followers.
Really?
Bro.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like hundreds of thousands from people all around the world.
But I could definitely, I completely get that because it's like, it's such a small niche. It's like his USP, like his unique selling point. But I definitely...
I like how you abbreviated that.
Yeah, I know, USP. I don't know if you guys have heard of something little called USP.
Where did you hear that?
No, it's just what they say.
Is it?
Yeah. No, I didn't make it up. That would be so wanky. I'm not gonna lie. That would be so wanky. Now they do just call it USP. Do you know what the part about that though is something I definitely do feel a bit of? Like when I do stand up in Norway, I don't really like to talk too much about that I live in the UK. Like I wrote a new joke about it that I did yesterday, but I don't really like to talk about it because if you live in England and you're Norwegian, and when you're in Norway, like you will sometimes obviously use like this English word will come into a sentence or whatever, and people are just like, oh, someone's living in the UK, someone knows how to speak English, and it just gets like sometimes I'll be like. Not juice, but like something like bacon, they'd be like, bacon, ooh. And I'm like, you would say bacon as well. Like, what would you say? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bacon is a bad example, but like my brother says funny. Like he will use the word, my brother's 18. Like he will use the word funny instead of saying morsom.
Yeah, okay.
because that's just what they do.
Yeah, and he lives in Norway.
He lives in Norway, yeah. Everybody lives in Norway. But if I did it, people would be like, all right, someone's in the UK. Yeah.
Mr. Fancy Pants.
No, but USP is just like, it's just something that's thrown out a lot because obviously on the English comedy scene, there's just so many people. So people are thinking a bit about the USP. Not everybody is, but
I know what you mean.
but it's a bit of like, I am that Norwegian guy, or maybe that Thor guy.
I'm that Australian guy.
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier.
Yeah.
But that's also what I was like interested about because I very much feel like one of the reasons why I was a bit nervous about doing comedy in Norway, and I mean not even nervous, just like a challenge, is that my identity in England, just on stage, but also off stage, is that Norwegian guy. Thor's from Norway. I get so many questions about Norway. Sometimes I feel like I'm not like the Norwegian ambassador or whatever, you know. People be like, I'm going to Tromsø next week. I've never been to Tromsø. But still I'm there, like, I live up to it. I'm like, oh man, it's so nice in Tromsø. I've never been. I've no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. That's I have a very similar experience, man. Like the Australian guy. But I have a few friends as well that I feel like they kind of lean into that identity a little bit too much. You know what I mean? Like if they're they're this guy. I'm like, okay, you're that guy. But how long are you going to do that guy jokes for?
Yeah.
And I feel like the same with me as well. It's like, especially I'm performing to a lot of new people that had never, ever heard of me. I got to do a little bit of introduction stuff. But how hard do I want to go with the I'm from Australia jokes?
Yeah, because you just become like a bit of a stereotype, right?
Yeah, right. And I feel like it's okay for them. But for me, I'm like, you know what? I think we've moved past that. Like, let's talk about some other shit.
Yeah. No, completely. I think I always toy in my head about this because when I do write bits, I have this thing that like, what is the thing people remember about me? It's normally my name is Thor, which a lot of people react to because it's written with a H. So they wouldn't say Thor, they always say Thor. So they're like, wow, Thor. And they don't think of like Norse mythology. They very much think Chris Hemsworth, Avengers, all of that.
Fuck yeah.
So that's like a lot of my life is people being like, is that your real name? And stuff like that. And then it's that I'm Norwegian. So in one head, I'm like, if I have great jokes about this is what people will remember. This is like a great, like, sort of like selling point thing. But then also, I don't find that interesting. No. I've always been called Thor or Thor or whatever. I've always been from Norway. So I just think normally I just need to just address it at the start. And then you can really just talk about anything.
Yeah.
And also the upside about, for me, writing about other things is that those other things are much easier for me to try and translate when I do gig in Norway from English to Norwegian. Because I can't go on Latter and be like, guys, guess what? My name is Thor. Mad, innit? And people are going to be like, yeah, we're all called Thor. Everybody else is called Thor. Yeah. We're all Norwegians. We don't care about this.
Yeah, we've all got weird names, bro. You're not special in here.
Yeah, no one cares.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, you know, when you said In It, you remind me of this Netflix show called Top Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen it?
I actually haven't seen it, but it's set around where I live. I live in South London. So.
Is that kind of like notorious? Is that a sketchy neighborhood then? I mean, in the series, it's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yes and no. Like, no, it is. You know, like, I mean,
Dude, just move the microphone a little bit closer to your face.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes and no. It is like a bit of a sketchier neighborhood. Like South London is like notorious for being sketchier, but it's also like very much getting a bit like gentrified, you know? Like,
that always happens.
People always talk about like Brixton, like people who like are from Brixton are like, it's not what it used to be. Like it used to be more like independent shops and like the market used to be bigger, etc. And now it's not really like that, which is completely fair. With gentrification, like it is getting probably a bit safer.
Yeah.
But it's still like, I'm in Brixton, like outside of the tube station so much, like at night, because I come home from a gig. And like, it is like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable, like if my girlfriend is there, like on her own at night.
Yeah.
Because like people walk up to you, people are a bit threatening, like almost everyone I know in London has got mugged at some point.
Have you been mugged?
I've been politely mugged, I would say.
You've been politely mugged?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been
so British.
I mean, one time a guy outside of Brixton Station in South London did, after a gig actually, stole. I had like headsets on, and he was like, hey man, have you got any change? And I was like, sorry man, don't have any change. And he was like, yeah, but man, I can walk with you to a cash point. That's what they all say. I'll walk with you to a cash point. So they can like, you can just, yeah, I know. And I was like, sorry man, I can't. And he was like, fucking hell, give me that. And then he took my headphones. But the thing is, my headphones were still, the thing is, this is how non-threatening I am. He took my headphones, turned around, and then sort of just waited for the same bus that I was getting.
No.
So he wasn't like going anywhere, and the headphones were still connected to my phone.
No.
So I'm just like got mugged, but I'm also just like someone's DJ all of a sudden. I'm like, you're not gonna get any of this good ABBA shit. I'm gonna
start taking requests.
Yeah, I'm like, what does he like? But yeah,
dude.
so that's happened. But my flatmate has had the same. He's had like someone follow him to a cash point.
Wow.
That's quite.
And then they force him to withdraw as much money as possible and take the cash.
Not as much money, no. I mean, but to the point
he's
where
bargaining with them.
Yeah, no, but that honestly happened.
Really?
So this guy was like, hey man, like he had like this tear like tattooed under his eye. This is again in Brixton.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey man, have you got any money? And he's like, oh sorry man, I don't have any money. He's like, hey man, I'll walk with you. My flatmate's like trying to like be like, leave me alone, but he just doesn't stop. And what are you gonna do, right? So he goes, eventually it's like, okay, like he's like, the guy's like, just a tenner, just £10. So my flatmate goes with him to the cash point, goes to click on like £10, and then the guy goes, 20 though, man. Come on, give me 20.
No.
And then he goes, give me 30. Give me 30. Yeah. And then I think my flatmate was like, 30. That's it. But then again, it's like, I mean, I think also the guy was like telling me like stories like, I've just come out of prison or whatever, and you never know if that's true. But
he's
like,
got the tattoo tear as
well. I
feel
like you put some work in it.
Yeah.
But he's got a very good branding, you know. He's
OSP.
that prison
what
guy.
is it? He's
USP.
his USP is fucking on point.
He's like, I'm that prison guy. I'm that mugging guy. You know, you could see him. You'd be like, I bet you mug people for a living. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it's not like I'm not gonna pretend that it's like super rough all the time. It's not like that. But that can definitely happen. Yeah.
Dude, I trained with a police officer that works in the gang squad of London, and he was just talking to me about the knife situation and how the stabbing situation was out of control, and like how every weekend they're just knife attack after knife attack after knife attack, often with like groups of teenage boys, that unprovoked attacks, just going up, just mugging other people, stabbings. And he said it was pretty violent, actually.
Yeah, it's actually so bad that I try not to read too much because I think I'll just get in my own head. But like now, I lived in Brixton for 3 years, and just now we moved. It's still close to Brixton, but it's a bit further out. It's called Tulse Hill, so it's like actually like kind of like a nicer area. Like there's more like maybe like some families living around, and it's sort of like a bit nicer. But only last week, some guy got stabbed outside of where I like buy my groceries, you know.
Damn.
And he was like 20 or whatever, and you go, mate, yeah, but the police won't say this is gang related.
No, because they want to keep it.
Yeah, so we don't know. But you think, is it gang related, or is it just like a random guy getting
When they say gang related, does that mean that the victim was somehow known to the attacker and that they had some kind of rival gang thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. So it's either gang related or it's a random attack.
Yeah, I would say normally, at least that's what we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Normally it would be gang related.
That's what you want to hear, right? You're not in a gang. You're fine.
Yeah, no, mate, if I was in a gang, it'd be a choir or something. It wouldn't be a gang.
you guys are like sølvgutter.
Yeah, I'm like, hey man, we're just like hitting those notes, you know, like we're not trying to take anyone's money. No, I mean, I'm just like trying very hard not to join a gang. That's what I'm working hard. I'm working hard on my comedy, working hard not to try and join a gang. But yeah, but that was only last week, and like it is fucking scary because it's just where you live. It is weird, but you sort of just have to, I guess, like get a bit more thick-skinned about it. But like I also think if that happened where I'm from, like I grew up, like when we were 10, we moved to this tiny place outside of Bergen. If that happened on my street there, like we would talk about that for like 40 years.
Yeah,
we would never stop talking about it.
No, that's the corner. That's where
it happened.
Sivert got stabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's man, I don't know, man. I feel like it's
What is it like in Oslo though? Because even
it's the same, dude.
because in Oslo, like just watching from like reading, like I still read like Vega every single day.
Nice.
And like I still read like man shot in Oslo, and I'm just like fucking hell.
Yeah, I think it's probably nowhere near as bad because the scale of Oslo compared to London is just so much smaller. But there's definitely like a lot of stabbings and shootings and gang activity and rapes and there's a lot of shit, man. Humanity is dark no matter where you are.
It is dark when it goes into
Yeah, and once you start like getting people with a varied degree of social mobility and people that live in like particular environments that somehow don't have a lot of opportunity and they just breed this kind of brotherhood of contempt, there can often be a lot of malignant behavior, a lot of just fucking anger and drugs and money and all that sort of stuff. It just kind of leads to violence no matter where you are. Like Sydney is a very violent city. Sydney is extremely violent.
Is it?
Oh my god, bro.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like it's not just because it's a cultural melting pot. It's also because there's 5 million people there, and you get big groups of men, like young guys in their 20s that are all hanging out, and you know what I mean? There's just something in the air that just goes, fuck that other big group of men.
Yeah.
Or they'll go, hey, there's 10 of us and 5 of them. Let's go. You add alcohol into the mix, and shit just pops off all the time. But Sydney is also that culture where men are still masculine. There's that like this sense of machoism, which to a certain degree, I think like you don't really have as much of that in Oslo. Like Norway seems to be a little bit more androgynous, a little bit more. Everybody's kind of just a little bit more chill. We have everything. The girls are pretty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, but I do agree with that. And I also think like, when I think of like Norwegian men, like I would say maybe more in the countryside, you have the men who are like very masculine, very manly. I work on a farm. I've got this.
Check out my tractor.
Check out my tractor. Like, look, I can lift up. I had like a stepdad that I grew up with, and he owned this like truck company, like a lastebil firma. Yeah. And I am not a very handy guy. I don't know if you can tell by everything about me. And for like 6 years or whatever, how long he was married to my mum, it was just this like, oh my days. He was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a footballer. And he was like, man, you can't be a footballer. You should be a truck driver or something like that. And I'm like, have you seen me? Like, I can't. I mean, I couldn't be a footballer either. Like, probably closer to be a truck driver. But yeah, I do think like if you see like Oslo, just like the men are pretty like, it's more like I don't know. I don't know if the word is progressive, but it's definitely like. Yeah, it's not the macho sort of stereotype
It's androgynous. Culture. That's what I think it is.
I don't know what that word means.
It means that there's a gender. There's like it's like genderless. I think like what happens is because the equality of genders is such a such a priority in Scandinavia. It's such a like men should do what women want to do and women want to do what men. I feel like there's a kind of mixing of traditional gender roles.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like men are more sensitive here.
Oh, for sure.
If that makes sense. And I feel like it's like in some cultures, like, a guy is like, I don't want to walk the baby. I don't want to like do the dish. I'm not making food. But here's like, you're a guy, you're like, you know what? All the stuff that my mom did, I'm going to do it. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
What was a woman's role? I'm now I feel like there's a kind of sense like that. And I feel like some of the women have more masculine qualities as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like the difference between the genders in Scandinavia, at least that I've noticed in Oslo, there's not a lot of differences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of what has... and you go to macho cultures, like, I'm a man. I do the man. I'm not doing that. That's what the woman is doing. I feel like that's what this sort of like macho-ness is. The essence of macho-ness is like just doing men things.
I think like that in Norway seems to be like, I feel like we label it a bit more like, well, if you feel like that, it's probably because you're insecure, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like that's definitely what we've like sort of done with that. But I really like that it feels so genderless. Like it definitely for the person that I am, it's like the best time that I could have lived in so far.
Oh yeah.
Like I would have been fucked. Like
as
if
a
I
Viking?
Was, as a Viking, I would be like, they would tell me to wait in the boats. Do you know what I mean? Like there would be like, someone has to mind the boats. Why don't you do that?
Just look after the boats. keep them warm for us.
Yeah, if someone tries to steal the boat, just give the boat to them. We don't care. You just do you. We'll catch you later.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, this is a thing that I definitely have. You know, talking about like identity and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had at one point when I lived in the UK, I had an acting agent. And all the roles that I would be put up for would be for this like Viking play series, Viking like computer games. Computer games sounds very old. Yeah, you know what I mean though, like video games. And so many of those auditions, it was so obvious that the casting people had read that my name was Thor and that I was from Norway, but not really seeing the rest of my profile, because I would be in rooms where everyone was fucking massive and then I was there as well. And it looked like they were it looked like they were auditioning to play Vikings and I was auditioning to play someone getting pillaged by the Vikings.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculous.
They must have been so disappointed when they saw you.
Yeah.
They go, Thor Odin from Norway? And then you turn up?
I have such a high-pitched voice as well, which like they would make us do like, I remember one of them, we had to do like all of these like improv exercises where they wanted us to go like, "Whoa," and all like to try and sound, and it just didn't work out at all.
That's ridiculous.
I felt so awkward.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. But do you act? Do you do any like? Is that your like? You know?
No, not really. Not really anymore. Like every now and then, but not that much. Like I want to be a stand-up comedian. I want to be a comedian. That's like my biggest dream. That's what I love doing. I don't love acting, but I've done a lot of acting prior.
Yeah, it's a different beast, isn't it?
Yeah, I have an acting degree.
No.
That's why I moved to the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have an acting degree. So you went to a performative university or college or whatever?
It's called, it's in Liverpool. It's called LIPA.
Oh, you went to LIPA?
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
That classic, the Paul McCartney School.
Yeah.
So I went there.
Isn't that quite like a prestigious school? Like it's a lot of people try to get in and...
Yeah, it was really cool to get into. Like I was like over the moon when I got in. Like at some point in my life, I was like surrounded by loads of people who wanted to become actors, because I went to folkehøyskole, and where the sort of like the branding of that folkehøyskole is called Solbakken, amazing place. They were like, we do acting, we do comedy, and at the time I was 19. I was living in this very like jantete place in Norway. Do you know what that means? Jante?
Nah,
you know janteloven? Like it's like judgmental.
Oh,
Very much like what it felt like at the time. It felt like we should do this. You like I very much felt like I didn't want to stand out growing up. Like I wanted.
Oh wow! So it really affected you.
Oh, absolutely. I almost consider me going to Solbakken as like almost like a before and after I did that in my life. Because before that, like I didn't want to do anything that was like different. Like I never acted growing up. There was no acting. There was no one acted growing up. I never did anything like that. And then I was just like, oh, I really want to like do comedy.
And then
I went there. And then
so you had the idea of doing comedy before you went to Solbakken?
Yeah, so I went to videregående, sixth form, whatever you want to call it, in Bergen.
Yeah.
And when I was 18, I used to be front of door at Stand Up Bergen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I really wanted to start doing stand-up, but I felt very young. And in hindsight, I think I was too young. I think if I had started then, like a part of me is thinking, man, imagine how long you'd gone for now and like how good you would have been and stuff. But I do think that if I did start then, I think what would have happened is that I would have obviously had a bad first gig, which most people do, or like maybe good first gig, but then it gets tougher from there. And then I probably would have been too scared and been like, I can't do this. So I was just front of house. I just wanted to be like involved somehow. It was cool to hang around comedians. But I also very quickly felt like, or like realized that like, if I don't do stand-up, I'm not going to get the same respect from just being the door guy, you know? And I just did it for free so I could watch the shows and stuff. And then I went to Solbakken. Everybody wanted to be an actor. I got wrapped in the bubble. Really wanted to go to LIPA. I was like, I really want to go there. Wanted to move to England. Seems really cool. Went to LIPA. Had a great time. It was great, but I always wanted to do stand-up comedy. My acting wasn't like the main thing that I wanted to do.
But did you feel like when you were at Lipper that you thought, yeah, maybe acting, maybe I could? Or were you like, I'm just doing this because it's going to get me to England, it's going to teach me a lot of,
No,
skills or...
If I did think that, I don't think I would have gone because it's too expensive.
Oh, really?
It's like studying in the UK is so expensive. It's not free university, so I wouldn't have done that.
Okay, I understand.
I definitely think at the time I was like, I guess I'll be an actor or whatever. But like, it's sort of like what I said earlier, like my favorite part about stand-up comedy, and my favorite part about everything is making something. And that it's always there, or like you could show for it. So like if it's like making the bit, making a skit, making a video or whatever, I've always loved those things. With acting, it felt a bit like we're doing this play now, and then we're done. We move on. So nothing that you really did in this play matters when we do this play. So I didn't really love that. But and I also just think I didn't think acting, like it was fun. Like I like it's nothing, actors are sick. Like there's a lot of cool actors around.
Yeah, awesome.
But I loved doing comedy when we were going to do comedy, and I loved doing improv. That was my favorite things. We could improvise a bit.
Yeah. The thing about doing comedy versus doing acting as well is that when you're doing comedy, I mean, one of the many things is that you're trying to generate a specific response. And that response is laughter.
Yeah.
And you love that feeling. You know what I mean? Like that feeling where you're like, aha, here's a joke. And everybody cracks up. And you're like, yeah, now we're kind of experiencing this together.
Yeah. And even when you do act, like I would get so many notes from directors being like, man, you're playing up to the audience too much. This doesn't need to be a funny moment. But I'm like, but if they're laughing, they're loving it. I'm like, because I think that is my favorite part about stand-up comedy is just how it's such a direct medium.
Yeah.
Like when we go off stage, we know how well that gig went. We don't go off, like, we're not like, how did it go? Like, we can hear it. People tell us if they laugh, if they like it or whatever.
Yeah.
With acting, it's not really the same thing.
No, it's not. Like there's one thing that I've started to kind of pay attention to a lot more recently is like when you know that you have the audience. Like when you know that like we're locked in and we're on this ride together, that is such a good feeling. And when you don't have them, for whatever reason, oh, it hurts.
It does hurt, yeah.
Oh, you're like, why aren't you with me? Why am I? Come on, what do I have to do? Come, we're doing this, right?
But that's also when I like dig in the hardest and I'm like, why didn't I get him? What happened there? Like, was the entry weird? So often I think like it's how you come in can just like dictate the rest of the gig. Like, are they with you from the start?
First impressions.
First impression for sure. I'm sure you've done the same. Like you've done some sort of gig and you've just, for some reason, something's happened in the room and you've just said the wrong thing at the start and they just go, we don't like you. And you're just like, oh boy, this is going to be fun for the next 15 minutes.
Dude, it happened to me last night. I did this gig, this launch of a podcast, and I didn't have the right entry. I was like, fuck. I kind of like tried to salvage it, and I never really like unified the room and took them with me on the journey. And
it makes a massive difference. Like I've some of the firma gigs, like corporates, we would call it, that I've done. Like I did one with Kjetil Melkevik.
Oh, nice.
A couple of years ago. And I do so much. Like I call up the manager and I'm like, hey man, have you got any like funny stories from like the office, whatever? Made like some jokes about that, made some little gifts and stuff. And it just made it so much easier when I actually went into material. Because they already liked me. They were already like, yeah, let's sit. What else have you got to say?
Oh, you made gifts?
Yeah. I mean,
really?
tiny things.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, one guy, he had two of his sons were already working at the company.
Yeah.
And then he had like his daughter was about to start and he had like another daughter after that, I think. So I just made some jokes about that and I was like, and my gift for you, and it was like condoms or something like that because you got too many kids or whatever. It was like, it was not like genius stuff forever, but
it's personalized.
They liked it. Yeah. They liked it so much because you're making jokes about them, but it is a lot more work.
Yeah, but it's worth it. You're right, man. You made it really personal and you bought gifts, so automatically they fucking love you.
Yeah, but it is weird. Like, it is like, I feel like so much of being a stand-up comedian is that you just have to be okay with things being a little bit awkward. Like when I'm calling up, like, so this was like 3 different branches. There was one in Stavanger, one in Bergen, and one in like the Netherlands or something. When I'm calling all of those managers, they're all a bit like, what the fuck is going on? They're all be like, okay, yeah, maybe we can find some stories or whatever. Like, it is a little bit awkward, you know, but you just sort of have to be okay with that, I think. And then it was so worth it. I'm so happy I did it.
Dude, I love hearing that, man. I love hearing that you went to like the extra length to make all those calls and go through that, like those awkward conversations to get the experience that was best for them, but also best for you.
Yeah, it was a great experience, you know, and it just comes from me doing corporate gigs before, where like I've just, you know, the first one I did, I was like, I'll just go up there, I'll just do my stuff, like they'll dig it, and then you go up and they're like, who are you?
Yeah,
we didn't know there was going to be stand-up comedy on, and why are you just talking in this weird little rhythm that you have got going?
Yeah. No,
and that's
right.
awkward. That's very awkward.
Yeah, it is awkward. That's kind of what I felt like that happened to me last night before we met at that first gig. I felt like I never really, you know what I mean? Like there was just something that was off. I think I kind of know what it is, but it's...
But then you learn from that, right? That's
exactly.
the great thing about stand-up, because you will have loads more of those gigs coming up.
Yeah.
So now you've learned from that. I still do mistakes all the time that I go, okay, you got to learn from that. And yeah, that's the best thing about stand-up. You get to go again, man. Like maybe not at the same night, at the same time, but you get to go again. You can do it other places. And when they love you, they don't know that there's a bunch of other people who had to deal with like the first time we were doing stuff and, you know, had to like go through like a bit of like an awkward sort of moment there. But I also do think, you know, we're talking about like going the extra mile and stuff. I like that is something that worked for me doing that. But also in Norway, there are so many good people who do like this firma gigs all the time. And they probably don't have to do that in the same way. They are just so good at them. They have so many things that they can go into. They are proper pros, you know?
Yeah.
So they probably don't want to do that because it's more work. And maybe also they don't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're so good.
Yeah, you know, saying that, man, there used to be this show, what's it called? Like Harald and...
Thomas and Harald.
Thomas and Harald. I was at a firma gig with them, and Harald, he memorized the name of like 50 of this company's products. He fucking, I mean, and then I think Thomas, he memorized like 50 people's names. And I was like, oh my God, they fucking really crammed for this.
Do you know, that's so funny that you would say that, because my dad works in this big company called Kongsberg Gruppen.
Yep.
And Harald did like one of their like Christmas shows or something. And he was making loads of fun about like his boss and stuff like that. So it's funny because as I was saying that some of these people don't have to do it, I was thinking, but actually he did it, and he's one of the top guys.
He's one of the top guys, and he killed.
But also, they get paid so much to do that.
They get paid bank.
They get paid so much.
Dude, with Kongsberg Group, like that must be like this company that, I mean, they must be making billions of kroners. Like it's such a huge.
Oh yeah, I thought you meant Thomas.
Oh no, I wish they were making billions, but the Kongsberg Group, I mean, like, they're getting the best.
Yeah, like
people.
They have like obviously massive deals, like, and yeah, no, I mean, like if you did like a Christmas show for them, you would make a lot of money.
Yeah,
but that's also the hardest thing, isn't it? When you're a comedian, have you ever done? I don't know if you've ever done a gig like this, but sometimes people will go, "What do you charge?
Yeah,
what is your fee?"
Yeah,
and that is a tough one.
How do you answer that?
It's so hard.
Yeah,
I normally do a bit of research and I'll ask around. It depends if it's something I've done before.
Yeah. Because it's kind of varies as well on the amount of time that they want you to do, and if it's just a 15-minute thing or if it's like hosting for an hour or something.
Oh yeah, it depends what they want you to do. For me, it sort of depends a bit like, because I'm still a new comedian. Like it still depends a bit like how big they are.
Yeah.
So like, but I can get like requests like that either from like me personally as a stand-up comedian, but also quite often we get like an email through the comedy night that I'm running.
Yeah.
In Soho. And the first time we got that, I undersold us so badly. And when we did the gig, I was just thinking, why on earth didn't I say more money? They would have paid. They had so much more money to give.
Yeah.
And we gave them such a good show. And I was thinking we could have asked for 4 times as much as this.
Yeah.
And that's annoying. So the next time it happened, I was like, that's not going to happen again. And I think for me, it's a bit like, first of all, I think, especially in Norway, I think this, when people ask you, to some degree, you got to think of the whole like stand-up community. So if everybody is just like decreasing their rates, everybody's suddenly getting paid less and less because it just seems to be like the normal rate, you know?
Yeah.
And Norwegian companies have a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of Norwegian companies have. So now, you know, like I heard of someone was doing an Equinor gig. I'm like, they have a lot of money. So it's completely fine to ask for quite a lot of money. And also, it's like, yeah, you might just be doing 15 minutes or whatever. But how much work have you done to make those 15 minutes what they are? Like, you worked for years doing that. You, like, in terms of writing, in terms of doing these weird gigs in the middle of nowhere and maybe not getting paid for them. And you've done all of these things. So you should charge properly, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think of is, what is the least... Because sometimes those corporate gigs are not that much fun. They can be fun, but they can also be, like, horrendous. And I'm like, just for the stress that I know is going to go into my head about doing this, what would I at least have to get paid to actually do this?
That's what I think. I think, what would I be happy with?
Yeah.
What would I be happy with? And I go, you know what? Sometimes I'll be happy with this, and sometimes I'll be happy with a lot more because I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way to do it.
But also, I think it depends, like, a bit where you are. If it's like, well, you know, I need the experience to do in terms of doing these gigs, which are very different to doing, like, a comedy club. Because when you do a comedy club, they are in your house. But when you're doing these sort of corporate gigs, you're in their house.
Yeah.
So the power dynamic is completely the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it really is. But, like, pricing is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
You know, including me sometimes as well. I'm like, fuck, I don't know.
But you run, like, because you run, like, a media company, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What isn't it the same with that?
It is the same with that. It really is. It's like it's pretty similar skill set when it comes to negotiating.
Yeah.
But with the media company, I can break things down with, like, an hourly rate and, like, with the equipment and editing and post production and things like that. And I've got a lot more experience running a media company and charging. So, but I feel like, you know, like, I feel like a lot of what you can charge as well is also connected to your value as a personality. Do you know what I mean? Like, that Harold guy that we were talking about would obviously be able to charge a lot more than me.
Yeah.
Because of just who he is and all the years of experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is a degree of, like, if you're making a video for somebody, like, nobody really cares that much. Like, how, you know, is the video going to be the same? Is it going to be good? But when it's, like, with stand-up comedy, it's like, oh, is it going to be from... Let's say it's like, I think that, like, when you're doing comedy, like, the only person that can do Thor, Odin, Stenhaug is Thor, Odin, Stenhaug.
Yeah.
We want you. That's the guy that we want. And then you can say, oh, you want me? I'm the only person that can do me. This is what I want.
And isn't it also a bit like, because I think we sometimes forget that the people in the companies who are hiring us can sometimes just be like this one dude who's thinking, what are people going to be happy about? Like, he's like, he or she, they're just, like, so, you know, focused on pleasing everyone else. So they don't care that much about us. They just want to, like, please someone else. And I guess, like, if you have someone like Harald, people know him. People have seen him on TV. People are like, wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
He's like a celebrity. He's like, I don't think Norway has that many celebrities, but he is a celebrity, right? And even though I do think he's probably really good. But even if he hadn't been much better than us, it's a bit like if you buy a shirt which has, like, the, you know, like, let's say, like, the Lacoste logo for, like, an old reference.
Yeah.
Or if you buy a shirt that has no logo, right? It might be a similar shirt, but, you know, the Lacoste logo is going to be
so much more valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people know about it.
That's it. And so I feel like but that kind of feeds back into what we were talking about earlier with, like, building up the following outside of just comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When people have this parasocial relationship to you and your work and they become fans, then they're like, oh, no, we want the Lacoste shirt.
Yeah.
That's
no,
it.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you can see, like, that's what the coolest thing that I find about, like, the Norwegian comedy scene now is just that I can just see so many comedians just working their way up there. And whether it's from them being on Ikke lov å le på hytta or, like, some sort of, like, TV show, because I don't think TV isn't really what it used to be, but it's still a thing. And I mean, when you talk about stuff like Ikke lov å le på hytta, man, that just got so many views. And I just think, like, I remember doing Stavanger with Ahmed.
Mamau?
Yeah.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
So we were doing that the weekend that Ikke lov å le på hytta season 2 came out.
Yeah.
And I remember being like I knew a bit of Ahmed from, I'd seen him on Latter Live.
Yeah.
So his clip had gone up on like the NRK website. And I'd seen that and I was like, this guy's really funny. And I told him when I was like, I saw your clip, it was great, man. But when we went out after, I think it was like after the last show, we went out, like so many people were walking up to him. And I was like, fuck, this guy is way more famous than I thought he was. And a lot of people had seen him on Ikke lov å le på hytta.
Yeah.
And some people were like, hey man, I think I know you from somewhere. You know, some people couldn't really tell where, but a lot of people were like, we've just seen you in this.
Yeah.
It made a massive difference. And let's say that he put on a show, those people would be like, oh yeah, it's that guy from that. Love to go and see that.
Yeah, dude, I love him.
He's so good.
He's so fucking good.
And such a nice guy.
He's the nicest guy. He's so funny.
He's so good. He's like definitely one that I'm just like, man, he's just going up and up and up. And he just did a show and everything. And yeah, I think like there's like definitely a part of me, like I love the UK comedy scene. And I think it's so cool to do stand-up. I'm like a comedy nerd. So like just like hitting the clubs and like doubling up and all of that. I love that. But also like the Norwegian comedy scene is like, I feel very like intimidated by it almost. I'm like, it's so many cool people working their way up here and so many hardworking people.
Dude, and what's awesome as well is you're getting all of these spots that are blowing up. Like Stavanger, bam, blowing up. Like Bergen fucking killing it. Oslo just like it's just going and going and going. And like, you know, Tromsø, tomorrow night I'm flying to Lofoten for the festival. Like you're like, damn.
But it should though. It should. Like, I mean, Stavanger is the big place. Like, so, I mean, I think... And also, like, Stavanger is a big place. It should have, like, these comedy scenes. But also, I've done a couple of gigs in Stavanger where it's been, like, English-speaking comedy nights because there's even a scene for that.
Yeah.
You know? So I do feel like there are some cities that probably have this big potential that hasn't really been utilized until now.
Yeah, Stavanger's a good one because you get a lot of foreign workers because of the oil platforms.
Yeah, loads. So and like, loads of people are like... I had someone requesting... if I could do like a Christmas party gig for them, they'd see him at this like English-speaking comedy night, and they wanted it to be in English because a lot of the people at the University of Stavanger is also foreign people, right?
Yeah, I did a private gig in Stavanger as well, and they booked me because it was in English.
Oh, yeah.
It's an international company, and their working language is English.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, it's great. It's like it's a really cool thing. And you know, now in Stavanger, there's even like a second sort of comedy club starting now at Centrum Scene, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's with the, I think that's maybe with Tora.
Yeah, Tore Medhaug.
Yeah. Shout out to Tora.
I don't know him, but he added me on Facebook, so I guess
awesome.
Yeah. But he and that's awesome, you know, because it's a big place. I think me growing up in Bergen, it's a bit different because I think Bergen has always been pretty good ever since I at least got into comedy, being like, you know, when I was like 18 years old, sitting in front of house or whatever. Like, and when the people that I saw then were like Christian Mikkelsen and like all of these people that just like blew up. Like there was such like a wave of great comedians coming from that place.
Yeah, that's nice, man. That's really good to see.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Dude, I think we've had, like, we should wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to say?
No.
Any like fucking thoughts or, you know, anything else that like about comedy or living in the UK or anything that's like...
No, I don't think so. No. It's been cool to be on, man. It's cool. I've seen this podcast before. That's like another thing because you've had two people from the UK comedy scene on the podcast.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is like how I saw it.
Yeah, you're friends with Mike Rice and Victor.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those guys.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's dope.
And also, that's another... I mean, we're speaking on social media. I can guarantee you, if you hadn't done the reels with them, I never would have heard of the podcast. Because, like, I wouldn't have just been on Spotify being like, Norwegian comedy podcast. I don't even know how you would find it, but it's from the reels.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
And I listened to the episode with Mike as well.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. I've noticed that, like... Are you on TikTok, by the way?
I just started TikTok. I started so much later. I wish I started 2 years earlier, man.
Yeah, okay.
I was too early into my comedy career.
I got you. But are you posting the same content on TikTok? So I'm going to just tell you, like, my strategy with TikTok, I just started as well, but my Instagram account is mostly English, and then my TikTok account, I'm going to make this one Norwegian.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Yeah, cool.
I find, like, why not? You know, just have, like, a different kind of personality, different channel, just reach people locally. I feel like that's a fun thing for me to do.
You might as well. And also, with those platforms as well, like, they will also tell you, this is working, better than this is working, sort of thing.
It's good like that. Sweet. All right. Thank you so much for being a guest, man. It was awesome meeting with you. And one of the great things I like about this podcast is talking to people about comedy. And I love doing it. I could do it for fucking ever.
Yeah, it's great.
It's the best.
It's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, it's the best. All right, man. Thanks a lot, bro.
Cheers, brother.
See you, ladies and gentlemen. Mwah.